Hello and good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We have a ton to get into on our payment pause event, so we're going to get started right away. My name is Sabrina Ashley. I am the executive director here at Student Debt Crisis Center. Student Debt Crisis Center is a national advocacy organization with nearly 2 million supporters calling for fundamental reforms to student loan policies and an end to the student debt crisis. We are joined today by the SDCC team. You'll hear from Natalia Abrams, our president, myself, and then also Ryan Correa, our policy and communications associate. We also have our awesome partners on tonight, Debt Collective. Debt Collective is a debtors union fighting to cancel debts and defend millions of households. They urge you to join them to build a world where college is publicly funded, healthcare is universal, and housing is guaranteed for all. All right. Before we get started, I just want to encourage folks to use the chat if you have any thoughts, but to use the Q&A feature if you have any questions. We do have several experts on tonight to answer your questions and to respond to you all. So please use the Q&A function. We'll remind you throughout the night, but that's where you're going to get your questions answered. And with that, we are going to introduce our guest, Austin Hinkle. Austin is the managing partner at the Public Goods Practice. The practice works to protect borrowers and hold accountable the companies that unfairly profit from student debt. Before launching PGP, he worked at the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, or the CFPB, the U.S. Department of Education, the Department of Treasury, and the Obama White House, where he led efforts to uncover and address systemic failures in the student loan system and improve operations. Austin, I'll pass it to you to talk about the SAVE lawsuit that is dropping.
Thank you, Sabrina. Thanks everybody for being here. My name's Austin Hinkle. It's really great to be with everybody tonight. I wanted to take a few minutes and talk about this lawsuit that we sort of updated or amended this week and the implications for student loan borrowers. The case is called Havens v. Department of Education, and we originally filed the case back in March. As with in many of these things, there's really a lot of history to all of the policies around student loans and student debt. And I'm not going to rehash it. What I'm going to try to focus on today is where we're at now and what we're tracking and planning going forward. So in this case, I have the privilege of being able to represent 4 borrowers who are federal student loan borrowers, 3 of them in SAVE, 1 who's not in SAVE anymore. And the core of our concern and our complaint is the way in which the department has gone about responding to the sort of end of the SAVE plan and the actions that they've taken. So we filed this amendment to the complaint on Tuesday, and we're really focusing on 3 actions that the department has taken that we believe are unlawful. So the first is the sort of shadow repeal of the repay program. If you sort of go back a little bit in time, you might remember that SAVE was implemented in the Biden administration, and it was really an amendment to this repayment plan called Revised Pay As You Earn, or we call REPAY for short. REPAY had been around for a long time. It was finalized in 2015 or 2016, back in the Biden administration, back in the Obama administration, and borrowers had largely been paying on that without incident. Before SAVE was even announced or there were plans to make SAVE a real thing, there was already 3.3 million borrowers that were repaying under the repay plan in the first instance. And it's pretty settled law that when a court strikes down a rule like the SAVE rule, The result of that is that the law in place goes back to what it was right before that rule was in existence. And so in this case, that's repay. It's not a particularly novel legal theory. We're not trying to break any new territory. It's relatively well settled. But what the department has done in the process is they've basically ignored the existence of the plan. You can't apply for it using the online application. It's not on the form. There's no or almost no information on the Department of Education's website anymore about it. And they've really written it out of the books. And they did this because when they settled the Missouri lawsuit, the one that ended SAVE, they promised, they pinky swore to Mohila and to the Missouri State Attorney General, that they wouldn't revise repay. And the problem with that, of course, is that to make that kind of change, you have to go through a notice and comment rulemaking. That protects the public interest, that protects borrowers, and it makes sure that when agencies are making these types of decisions, they've really fully analyzed and vetted all of those concerns, and that none of that happened. They just sort of made it disappear. The second problem then is so what the operation that happened here is these borrowers who were all in repay when SAVE became law were all passed into SAVE sort of automatically, right? If you were in there at the time, you'll remember that your monthly payment amount changed, and then you were repaying under SAVE. We think the same thing basically happened in reverse, just the department hasn't recognized it. So that when SAVE was struck down, all of these borrowers that are enrolled in SAVE are now functionally enrolled in the revised pay-as-you-earn plan. And that leads us to sort of the second problem, which is that the department is sort of pushing forward with a policy to involuntarily move everybody off of this plan and onto another option, which is really unprecedented in the sort of management of the student loan portfolio. And then the last thing that the complaint challenges is the benefits that borrowers earned under SAVE, that borrowers are entitled to the benefits they earned sort of up to the time of vacator. So the goal here is to get a decision on the preliminary injunction. That's the second sort of big filing we did on Tuesday. And the ask there is for the judge to step in and tell the Department of Education to pause repay and to pause the sort of elimination of repay and pause the transfer. So why does this matter? Try to be quick. So first, it matters because it could stop the July repayment moves, this sort of the transition that's going to start in July when servicers start sending notice. The second issue is that it could protect borrowers from being forced into the standard repayment plan. Some borrowers are already on top of it. Maybe they're applying to another plan, but there are going to be millions left at the end of the day that are going to be forced into the standard repayment plan that's much more expensive and end up moving into delinquency or default as a consequence. For many borrowers, repay is the most affordable option too. So that's sort of the third issue here, is that it could restore this type of access. And then finally, we're hoping that at the end of the day, the court will see that these borrowers who have been waiting in SAVE for years are entitled to the benefits that they earned, not because SAVE exists anymore, but because once they made that last qualifying payment, that was all they were required to do. And now the government is required to honor that commitment. So, we think this is a sort of focused kind of case which highlights the ways in which the Department of Education is not following the law, and that it's sort of examples of the ways in which the sort of overall portfolio as a whole is being mismanaged. So I think that's what I got, and I'm particularly happy I get to introduce my friend Julia Barnard. I think she's next up. She is currently the higher education policy director at the Debt Collective, and served as the student loan ombudsman and advisor to Director Chopra at the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. During her time at the CFPB, she was Director Chopra's principal policy advisor on student loan strategy and acting as the CFPB's primary liaison to the Department of Education and the Office of Federal Student Aid, a thankless and incredibly challenging job. She led a ton of policy development processes related to federal and private loans, reports about tuition payment plans, K-12 payment platforms, college banking, and more. So with that, I will turn it over to Julia. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you so much, Austin. Austin was the head of the Office of Students and Young Consumers at the CFPB when I was there, so we were close colleagues. And Austin, truly a huge thank you for all we did there and even more for all you're doing now. The case is really inspirational to me. I saw a lot of people in the chat being inspired by your work as well. And I think it's helping millions of people. So I'm very lucky to learn from you and be your colleague. And I also wanted to thank Student Debt Crisis Center for being our dear, dear partners in this fight, and wanted to say that your moral clarity is a guiding light for me. And then I also wanted to say thank you so much to all of you for attending this tonight. I think showing up in solidarity with each other and taking action to turn the tide on this crisis and this hostile, punitive decision that the Trump administration is intentionally making is extremely powerful. So I'm very grateful that you're here with us. So tonight, mostly, I just want to speak with you for a few minutes about why I believe, why I'm so sure, and why I'm fighting for a payment pause. From 2022 to 2025, like Austin said, I worked at the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, which is a federal agency that was founded in the wake of the Great Recession to protect Americans from predatory financial practices. And while I was there, I eventually became the student loan ombudsman and I spent all day reading complaints directly from debtors, trying to resolve their issues directly with servicers, with them, with the Department of Education in collaboration, and working with our law enforcement partners to hold servicers accountable for violations of law. I think it will come as no surprise to any of you that that job was full of failures. You know, we were able to resolve some complaints, but there were a lot of complaints we were not able to resolve. And there was a lot of frustration in that job. And in 2024, at the tail end of the Biden administration, I wrote in my annual report as the ombudsman that the system was as bad as it has ever been, had ever been. Unfortunately, I think today we're still on that downhill slide, and it's even worse than it was then, which is honestly saying a lot. In that report, I actually did call for a pause or a temporary forbearance due to a total system breakdown, which I characterized in terms of mostly five primary issues. The first, it was payment processing errors. I'm sure many of you have experienced it. You can tell us in the chat if you want. That payment processing errors are where somebody maybe had the wrong amount withdrawn from their account. Maybe their payment was missing and was never credited to their account. Maybe the wrong amount was credited. That's payment processing errors. The second category was incorrect repayment information, where debtors reported that their servicers sent them bills in the wrong amount or put them in the wrong plan or lost their loan history. I also talk to people about that every day. Today I was talking to somebody who got a notice that their IDR monthly payment would be $50, but in reality it's like $2,000. Or they've heard both numbers and who knows which one is correct. The third was endless delays. I'm sure many of you have been in that situation where debtors are waiting months or even years to have their request processed or even to receive a response about their request. Fourth, and I'm sure many of you have experienced this one too, is what we were calling customer service doom loops, where people would wait hours on the phone only to be hung up on, or would be told on the phone to go to a website to resolve their problem, and the website would not work, or the website would direct them back to the call center. Unfortunately, that's extremely common. And finally, ongoing litigation that makes it impossible for debtors to understand their options or plan for the future. So our analysis actually showed at that time, using the complaints, that the errors were so highly consequential for people that they had to forego basic needs like medical care, food, even housing. They missed car payments. They didn't save for retirement. They left employers to get higher paying jobs or didn't leave employers that they wanted to leave. And more. And obviously, there's a profound psychological impact of debt. And a lot of people feel a great deal of shame around their student debt that is fully, in my opinion, a systemic problem and not a personal failing in any way. We found in our analysis that the average person reaching out to us had a problem that could cost them almost $14,000 and had already experienced a delay of 8 months when they reached out to us. My conclusion was and is that this is a system that is plainly abusive. So, unfortunately, I see in the chat, I imagine that these are familiar problems to everyone, that nobody's surprised by much of this, and these problems are not solved. In fact, they're actually worse now. In addition to the 5 issues that I just discussed, the Trump administration has added a few. So now, The student loan servicers and the Department of Education are openly hostile to student loan borrowers and know that there is little chance that they will be held accountable anytime soon. So some of those bad practices like doom loops or failure to respond to complaints are getting worse. Second, the Trump administration appears to be hostile to higher education more generally. We'll talk more in a bit about the changes coming up. I see a lot of people asking. But the Trump administration's actions make it plain to me that they do not want a broadly educated public and want to paint higher education as something that is only for elites. Finally, the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, which we will also talk about a little bit more, intentionally raises costs for millions of working Americans, including millions of student debtors. Many of the changes do not kick in until 2028, but the leadership at the Department of Education has taken it upon themselves to implement some of these bad changes early, and some of the bad changes are also intentionally going into effect this summer. We'll talk more about that. So I completely understand I'm painting a pretty daunting picture, but I wanted to end by saying that we can fight for what we deserve. And I think, honestly, what Austin just talked about, the Havens case, which takes complaints from literally just 4 people, members of the Debt Collective and Student Debt Crisis Center, literally just 4 people. And now I think what they're doing could actually lead to systemic change. And I hope that reminds everyone here that our personal actions and our solidarity with each other truly can make a difference. And we're also going to hear from 2 debtors, wonderful members of Debt Collective and Student Debt Crisis Center in a bit, who recently went to talk to senators on the Hill, and they can tell us about that experience as well. I truly think people's personal actions and solidarity with each other matter in this moment. So we have needed, and we urgently need today, a payment pause. We cannot let the Trump administration cynically frame this issue as one that impacts only the elites. We all know that's not true. Education is a public good that improves the quality of life for individual people, but also for all of society. We need to transform the shame that many debtors feel into a solidarity that can lift the burden for millions of people. So thank you so much for being here tonight. Thank you for listening to me, and onward. So I'll give it back to Sabrina, and I look forward to answering your questions.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Julia. I think you are such a powerful speaker. And I just want to emphasize the need for the payment pause that we are calling for. So far, we already have 100,000 plus signatures on our payment pause petitions combined. We both organizations, Student Debt Crisis Center and Debt Collective, have petitions going. So the momentum is going. And we want to clarify what exactly is a payment pause. And what we mean by a payment pause is where all monthly federal student loan payments are paused until borrowers have access to complete, timely, and accurate information about their repayment options and application backlogs are cleared. There are over 500,000 applications right now that are pending and in a backlog. And with these upcoming changes, especially with around 7 million SAVE borrowers expected to apply for other repayment plans in the next 3 or so months, that is just unreasonable to expect that influx of applications to come in and for the Department of Education to process all of them. Additionally, in this payment pause, we are calling for them to hold borrowers harmless during this pause period. They did this in the payment pause that went into effect in 2020 for COVID protections. We are demanding that months in the pause period must be counted towards public service loan forgiveness and income-driven repayment forgiveness, and interest must be set to 0%. I know the number one question about the payment pause is, don't do it because it'll pause the progress that we get towards PSLF and IDR, and we are asking for that progress to continue during that pause. So why do we need it? I think Julia said it very nicely. Borrowers are receiving conflicting deadlines with severe consequences. We are seeing the rules keep changing and they're not settled. Loan servicers are not performing basic functions, and the Department of Education lacks the staff to operate the system. So right now you can take action. We can drop both of these petitions into the chat as well. I strongly urge you, as well as I'm sure everyone on this call urges you to take action, sign the petitions if you have not already today. Both our Student Debt Crisis Center and Debt Collective's petitions, they are slightly different just because they are different organizations and every single signature counts. All right. So switching gears just a tiny bit, we are going to get into the Save Stories project, which is a project that Student Debt Crisis Center recently did. It was a survey and we collected around 1,000 responses. And these stories and pictures were from borrowers that were all across the country. We asked them questions about their time in SAVE, both in the repayment period and then also in forbearance, and also the financial uncertainty that the forbearance creates for millions of Americans. Based on responses from the borrowers who participated fully, SDCC estimates that affected borrowers will pay an average of over $600 more per month as repayment options change. So what is the SAVE plan? Let's remind ourselves what is going on here. The Saving on a Valuable Education, or SAVE plan, is an income-driven repayment plan, or IDR plan, and it was created in 2023 by the Biden-Harris administration. Anyone who was previously enrolled in the repay plan was placed into SAVE, like Austin was referring to earlier. And since then, repay has been phased out. There are more than 7 million Americans who are enrolled in the SAVE plan currently, and recent court filings or court rulings have effectively ended the SAVE plan. So the SAVE plan, to be clear, is over. People cannot enroll in it anymore, and people are going to have to get out of it once they receive notices, and we are going to go over that timeline in just a second. So as a result of all of this, the Department of Education has started notifying folks enrolled in SAVE that both the plan and forbearance will end soon. This is not the final notice. Multiple emails now have been sent to SAVE folks about the end of the plan, including some notices that are very alarming. We'll have screenshots in a second as well. Final notices will start going out on July 1st, and they will come from your servicer, not the Department of Education. Okay, so before we get too far away from our Save Stories project, we wanted to share a few of our key findings with you all. So based on our responses, we did find that there is going to be about $7.1 million of additional annual payments across surveyed borrowers. So that is just in the about 850 borrowers who we took data from. In that group, we also found an average increase in monthly payments of 310%. The median monthly payment increase was $500, and 48% of borrowers would see payments increase by more than $500 a month. Finally, there's about a third or a quarter of borrowers who are currently paying $0 under the SAVE plan or were paying $0 when repayment was active. So these are really alarming statistics, a good reminder of why the SAVE plan is so important and why we need a payment pause right now. Okay, so what to know if you are enrolled in the SAVE plan. Here's that timeline I was referencing. So right now, no action is required from anyone at this point. You should consider exploring the loan simulator or the EdCap New York tool, and we can drop that link also in the chat. We'll also be sending a recording after this, so you will have all of these resources as well. And those two tools can help you estimate your monthly payments and we can drop those in the chat, like I said. Starting July 1st, this is when, again, your servicers are going to begin emailing folks a formal 90-day notice starting on July 1st, requiring them to exit Save. You have 90 days from the day that you receive your notice to then exit the plan. So these notices are going to go out in waves. Not everyone is going to receive one on July 1st. Some folks could receive one on July 15th. So whenever you get that notice, you have 90 days. If you do not take action within that 90-day period, you will be placed into a version of the standard plan. So this could be the traditional 10-year standard plan or the new tiered standard plan, which we will go over tonight. Okay, so that 90-day timeline, if we can go back one, if you benefit from not making a payment in that 90 days, wait until you are closer to the 90-day mark to exit Save. That's our recommendation. There's no need to get out of it sooner than you need to if you're really benefiting from that $0 payment. And then you can apply for income-driven repayment plans at studentaid.gov. Okay, so these are examples of the notices that folks have been receiving. The first one here, the SAVE plan has ended, but you have options. Then they sent one that says second notice, and they recently, I believe just yesterday, sent one that says third notice. Again, these are all alarming. They have the little triangles with the exclamation points in them. These are not the official notices. You do not have to take action right now. So some tips for SAVE folks. Be careful with misinformation. We have seen several servicers tell people that they need to consolidate their loans in order to get out of SAVE, and that is simply not true. So a few things that you can do right now: find out which repayment plan options you qualify for. You can use the loan simulator to look at your eligibility, and you can use the EdCap tool to estimate your monthly payments across existing repayment plans. They also have a calculator in there for the new repayment plans that are coming out on July 1st, which we'll go over tonight. Make sure that your contact information is up to date, both on your servicer's website and on studentaid.gov. They will be contacting you with those formal notices again. Your servicer will be. So make sure you log into your servicer account and update your contact information. Finally, whether you switch out of SAVE now or closer to the deadline is up to you. This is a personal decision. If you're close to the PSLF or IDR credit thresholds for forgiveness, then maybe you want to consider switching to another IDR plan sooner rather than later. However, some people are really benefiting from not making a payment. So again, it's a personal decision. All right. And with that, we are going to switch into our borrower discussion section. We have two borrowers on right now. We have Shayna Hayes joining us from Washington, D.C. And then we also have Sarah Bundy from New York. Are you guys both there?
Hey, Sabrina.
Hello.
Hey there. Thank you both so much for joining us tonight. And I'm really excited for everyone to hear your powerful stories. We've spent a lot of time tonight talking about the lawsuits, the SAVE plan, some deadlines, policy changes, but honestly, the center of all of this are you two, everyone on this call, the student loan borrowers, and the real people whose lives are being impacted every single day. So with that, thank you both so much for being here. And Shayna, I'm going to start with you. If you would like to tell us a little bit about yourself, maybe your work as a special education teacher, and then also what your student loan journey has looked like.
Sure. Thanks, Sabrina. My name is Shayna Hayes. I currently live in Washington, D.C., but I grew up in upstate New York. And as Sabrina mentioned, I am a special education teacher currently in Maryland for what's known as a non-public school. It's a fancy terminology, but essentially it's for students with pretty significant emotional or behavioral differences, disabilities, etc. And my student loan journey, I guess, started when I entered undergrad in 2006 as the first person in my family to attend any type of college or take any college classes. That being said, my family did the best that they could in terms of like helping me navigate financial aid, what loans looked like, etc. Unfortunately, my family fell into that kind of median income range. So the federal loans that I was afforded through the FAFSA were not enough to cover the tuition and room and board at the institution that I attended. And so we did also take out private student loans. So when I graduated undergrad and then further went on to graduate school, I ended up with just over $150,000, including accrued interest to this point in time. When I graduated, I believe it was just over 100. I want to say about 115, and now it's ballooned to be about $150,000 at this point. I've been able to pay off my private student loans, thankfully. But the federal student loans have been a bear, as I'm sure you all know. My story, while it's unique to me, I'm sure a lot of you kind of can empathize and are in similar situations. And so I've done some work with Debt Collective and SDCC in the past. And as someone that consolidated my loans prior to the previous deadline, 2 years ago now, and reapplied for SAVE, which I was already in at the time. With the ongoing litigation at that point, it kind of was in this never-ending loop of uncertainty. And then one of my consolidated loans ended up getting denied after the court came down and said SAVE no longer is going to exist. And now I've currently been fighting with Mohila, who's my new servicer. It's about the fifth one I think I've had over the 15 years or so I've had my student loans. Because they're accruing interest when they shouldn't have been accruing during the pause previously. And so it's just kind of been a whirlwind, to say the least. And so having been in this space for a little bit and worked with all of you for a few years now, I have personally felt that if I'm confused and unsure, I can only imagine how folks who are less familiar with some of the previous pieces of it kind of are feeling right now.
Yeah. Thank you, Shayna, for sharing that. I know that you have experienced a lot of the difficulties as a result of policy changes, and we're going to get into some of that. But I'd love to pass it to Sarah briefly. Sarah, you've been living with student loan debt for almost 30 years. Can you tell us a little bit about your journey and what it's been like carrying that debt for so much of your adult life?
Yeah, I went to college in 1997. I was a single mother. My daughter was just a baby, and my son was in kindergarten. And one of the things that you hear a lot, when you talk about student debt, is people always ask you, "Oh, don't you regret it so much?" And I don't regret going to school. That was getting an education just sent my life on a completely different trajectory. I mean, I was really stuck. I was, getting out of an abusive relationship. I had these two little kids. I had absolutely, no real structure or plan for the future. And, so I did what everyone says to do, go to college. And it was amazing. I learned so much. And I can't say that I regret it, but it shouldn't be this way. This has been 30 years. And the amount that I borrowed, I went to SUNY Brockport, which is, it's a town I grew up in. It's, right up, literally right up the street from me. And I borrowed about $40,000. And it's now at about 55,000 after paying on it for all of these years. And I mean, I've been in and out of default. You know, I've been under garnishment. It's been an absolute nightmare, and it's just been a constant source of stress. And it's made me hesitant to encourage my own kids to go to college. And now we have grandkids. We have our two little grandkids, live with us with my daughter. And I just, I don't know what their future is going to look like, and that's why we're working on the college for all. But the save plan has been, it's been the only real pause that has given us any kind of breathing room.
Yeah.
So when that's gone, yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, I think a lot of people feel exactly the same way with both of you. Policy changes, kind of upending their whole financial plan to repay and also just live. And then also, yeah, being forced out of this plan that has been so helpful for so many people. And that sentiment of, trying to explain to people that you don't regret going to school, but then we're left with this huge balance. It's really tough. So thank you both for giving that kind of overview of where you both are at. Shayna, I want to go back to you and the SAVE plan. I know you said that you've been in the SAVE plan and then you hit some delays because of all the ongoing litigation. Can you walk us through a little bit more of what it's been like trying to navigate a system that seems to keep changing around you?
Oh, great question, Sabrina. Chaos, I think, would be the best word to use, and just pure confusion. It seems like whenever I contact my servicer, I get different answers based upon, the mail that they send me versus the email that they send me versus the person that I wait 4 hours to talk to on the phone. It is just littered with misinformation, and I never know if what I'm being told or asked, etc., is accurate, because I'm afraid I'm going to get something different tomorrow, whether it's in my email or in the mail, etc. And so that's been, I think, one of the most confusing pieces. And as a human, with student loans, I have a few college degrees now, and I don't know where to start in terms of trying to figure out who is correct, what is correct, etc. And so I think just confusion and chaos would be the best way to describe that, especially with the uncertainty around payment plans, what exists, what doesn't exist, and all that.
Mhm. And can you talk a little bit more about your payment, your monthly payment projected increase, and what that would actually mean for you and your family's like day-to-day life?
Yeah. So under Save, I was at the time paying, I want to say it was $300 roughly. It was less than four, probably 300 and some change. And the most recent notice I got from Mohila said that my payment individually was going to go up to be just under $1,000 a month, which ironically is roughly the size of our one-bedroom apartment in DC. And my wife also has student loans that are similar in balance, and is facing a very similar kind of uncertainty in terms of payment plans and all of that type of thing. And so all in, I think our estimated payments collectively are just under $2,000. And frankly, Sabrina, that's money we just don't have. I recently was in a motor vehicle accident, and so we're still paying off a lot of medical debt as we kind of go through all of that process. But even if we didn't have that payment, $2,000 is just money that we don't have in terms of excess income, and we're not currently saving right now, because we don't have the ability to, with all of the bills that we already have, without paying our student loans at this point in time. And so knowing that there's kind of this, I guess, lack of better words, like a bomb that's about to drop in terms of, our finances, is really unsettling. And I don't know what the answer is in terms of when we get there, what's going to happen, but there's not enough money to go around in terms of paying all of the bills that we have, especially with the continued inflation, gas prices, groceries, etc. Everything is more expensive. But we can't pay, 2/3 of our rent bill towards our student loans, because we also need a place to live. And so it's a really scary place to be in right now.
Yeah, all the uncertainty for sure. And that worst part of just having no answer. Yeah, really disheartened to hear that, Shayna. But thank you for sharing that. And I think that is powerful and exactly why we're here tonight. Um, Sarah, I want to move over to you and talk a little bit more about your experience in default. I know you shared with us some wage garnishment, and then also now, of course, you're in the safe forbearance. Can you tell us a little bit more about when your wages were being garnished and what that period looked like for you?
Yeah, I mean, it was a nightmare. Um, I actually saved all the all the pay stubs from that period, and I was working at I was working as a DSP, direct service provider for people with disabilities. Um, I'd done a lot of like tech sales jobs, and I just wanted to do something really meaningful. And it was very fulfilling, but it paid minimum wage. Minimum wage in New York State was 11.80 an hour. So I was making 11.80 an hour, and this was right before COVID. This was 2018, 2017. And the garnishment that they put me under, and I was already, when you're already at minimum wage and then they add a garnish on top of that, I mean, minimum wage is bad enough, and then how are you possibly supposed to make ends meet after that? I mean, they took um they were taking $106.14 out of my biweekly paycheck. I mean, on this pay stub, I worked 81 hours and I brought home $589 after garnishment and after insurance. And this was March 5th of 2020. So if you think of what happened right after March 5th of 2020, I was, working in healthcare. I worked throughout the pandemic. And after the pandemic hit, all of a sudden we weren't unskilled workers anymore. We became healthcare heroes. And I actually got refund checks back from the Department of Education. They sent me checks back for everything that they had been garnishing. So it's kind of like you you garnished me. You took all this money and then you gave it back. And since then, I've been in the safe forbearance. So right now, my payments are zero. Um, but I mean, just it's so triggering, uh, to just think about what it could go back to under those payments. I mean, I literally, like Shane was saying, I cannot afford it. We have five people living in a two-bedroom house with one bathroom, and that includes a toddler. And there's no meat on the bone here to start these payments back up. And I'm sure that millions of people feel the same way. When we had our meeting with Bernie Sanders, which is our huge, opportunity to be able to have that roundtable discussion, that was one of the things that everyone was saying. And I think that, a lot of politicians do understand how harmful this is going to be. The question is, what are they going to do about it?
Hmm. Yeah, I agree. And there's, yeah, again, that hard answer or re realization that at the end of this forbearance, there is no good answer. And then also in your case, the flip-flopping of what they want from you is really, like, quite frankly, disturbing. So, thank you for sharing that. I also wanted to ask you, Sarah, about your kind of projected repayment under WRAP. What went through your mind when you looked at that and I think you shared that you figured you would be making payments maybe into your 80s and you would have to delay retirement. Can you tell us a little bit about what went through your mind when you realized that?
Yeah, and that's actually kind of the best case scenario. I think I'm like millions of people, we're getting answers all over the place. My servicer's ED Financial, and about a year ago, they sent me this payment schedule, and it was kind of all over the place. They were saying, for 1 year, your payments will be $600 a month, and then after that goes up to $2,000 a month, which is more than I even make now. And right now on the the calculator says that it should come out to about $168 a month. But that's $168 a month for 30 years. I'm 55. I have exactly $2,000 in a retirement account, and that's all of my retirement savings. So I can either work until I'm 85 and not get sick, not have to take care of a sick family member, keep a job, keep the same job, keep a wage where I can make that payment for the next 30 years. And then, I'm 85 years old. I've got nothing. And I mean, the whole point of Social Security was to have a safety net for people. And I'm not even confident that we're going to have that. And I'm going to have no savings whatsoever. And all of that money for all of those, next 30 years. And I've already been paying on this for 30 years. So that's 60 years of repayment. That's a lifetime of making these payments. It's insane. It's completely insane.
It is. I think that is the word for it. Absolutely insane. Well, thank you both for answering those questions. And I just want to do a quick shout out for anyone who is in default. Sarah, thank you for being so brave and sharing that story. I know being in default, being delinquent on loans is a really, for some reason, shameful topic. And I don't think that it's something to be ashamed of at all. We're creeping up towards 1 in 4 student loan borrowers being in default on their student loans. That number is just mind-boggling. So I really just commend you for being so open about that. And I really just want to say to anyone who is in default or delinquent on their student loans, it is not something to be ashamed of. And I just want to stress that. So I do have a question, kind of bringing it back around to a payment pause. Shayna, if payments were paused right now, what would that breathing room allow you to do?
Yeah, if payments were paused now, it would allow us, one, to catch up financially in terms of that medical debt that I mentioned earlier and be able to, I don't want to say comfortably because it's, not like we'd be able to save a bunch at this point in time. But the biggest thing was it would lower my family's collective stress and blood pressure levels at this point in time, and just give us a little bit of breathing room until everything kind of got sorted out. Because I think that's, for me personally, that's the goal, right? Is to pause payments for them to figure out what the plan actually is, and then be able to communicate it effectively to all of us, which I think is a big piece of the puzzle here. But yeah, just some financial breathing room, and be able to afford the daily necessities like rent and gas and groceries and all of those types of things that are eating more into our financial budget than they previously did, a few years ago.
For sure. Sarah, what about you? If payments were paused right now, what would that breathing room look like for you?
That would really, I mean, we're kind of just squeaking by as it is. And, when everything else is going up, the grandkids' daycare is going up, and our groceries, gas, everything. And, if there was a pause there, that would allow us um, to try to save a little bit of money. We've got a project where we're trying to put a second bathroom on the house, so that we can at least have because my daughter can't get her own home. There's also a housing crisis. So if they're going to stay with us, then we're going to need a little bit more room. And that's, a project that we would like to be able to do just so that we can live. I mean, just be able to take care of our kids and our grandkids and have enough space for everybody. It, it doesn't seem like a huge ask. It really doesn't. We work really hard. I work as a paratransit scheduler. We set up buses for the disabled. My daughter does the same job. My husband works full time. We have 3 wage earners in the house, and we're barely getting by. And then without that payment pause, it's like this big financial Jenga tower that we're in, and this will just take the block right out of the bottom of it. And I think that's the case for a lot of people.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely what we're hearing. The fact that there's so much uncertainty right now, there's the application backlog, so many people are defaulting on their loans. And there's just so little communication from servicers and the Department of Education on these things. Yeah, really frustrating, and it makes my financial decisions for your family and yourself just next to impossible. So I think that definitely resonates with a lot of people on this call. Um, I do want to ask both of you a final question. Um, Shayna, if the people who were making these policy decisions about borrowers' lives were listening tonight, what would you want them to understand about what you're going through as a student loan borrower right now?
Oh, good question, Sabrina. I think personally, a lot of times those folks who are in the decision-making roles, such as Congress, Senate, House of Reps, administration, etc., view the student loan system and student debt and all of the above as just numbers and data. And I know you all shared some data earlier, and I think you all do a really great job of reminding everyone that there's humans behind each one of those data points. But when I feel that when it's talked about on a larger scale, such as in the administration or Congress, the human aspect and the human piece behind it gets lost. And so I think, moments like this where you can actually share like how it's personally impacting you and get them to understand what that actually looks like. And it's not just from a financial perspective, but from an overall health and well-being and kind of just livelihood. It's really detrimental. And I'll speak for myself and just say that, I'm not opposed to paying back my student loans, right? Like I took out the loans. I understand that I would love to pay them back, but I need to be able to pay them in a way that doesn't mean I can't pay my rent either. And so I think that's a big piece that I hear kind of from the folks that are against, what we're asking for here and the work that you all do. And so I think just reminding that there's real people behind those numbers, and it's not just folks that are trying to, get away with something or steal money and all that type of stuff. Because I think that's what we hear a lot of times from the media who are opposed to stuff like this.
Totally agree with that. Thank you, Shayna. Sarah, I will give you the opportunity to answer the same question. If these policymakers were listening tonight, what would you want them to know about your experience as a student loan borrower?
Like Shayna was saying, there's this perception that we're trying to get away with something. I think a basic college education is pretty standard right now. I mean, it wasn't that long ago that the idea of universal high school was some crazy idea. And I think that I don't think that they understand that it's not something, you know, exotic or something decadent to go get this basic 4-year college education. It really isn't. And it's a public good. It benefits our entire society to have more educated people in our society, and people who have better critical thinking. skills, and that really benefits our entire society. And I don't think they realize um, that in order for our nation to be competitive, we need an educated constituency. And the other thing I think they don't realize is um, how old we're all getting. There's still this perception that people with student loans are someone in their 20s, and they go on spring break or whatever, and now they want us to foot the bill, and that's not it. You can't get ahead of that interest after a certain point, and people are aging into our debt. We're not aging out of it. The fastest growing group of people with debt are people over 50. And, that is going to be a real crisis. We're not saving for retirement. Um, we're not, doing all the things that we should be doing at this point in our life. And, many of us are also coming up to the age where we're dealing with aging parents, right? And, trying to take care of our other family members. And then, maybe some of us have grandchildren as well. And a student debt burden on top of that for what was really just a basic education that you need today. I think they need to understand that this is a crisis that is affecting more people than they realize.
Absolutely. 100% agree with what both of you said. I think you said that excellently. Higher education is a public good. It benefits society. And I want to just highlight that there is this expectation that you're supposed to go to college, you're supposed to get this education so that you can contribute to society. And you're totally right. It is not a young person's problem, or not just a young person's problem. I think maybe the number one thing that I see about student loan borrowers in the media when talking about not giving them relief is that they're irresponsible, and that is completely false. So I want to thank both of you again for being so candid and sharing your stories. I have been sort of keeping an eye on the chat as we've been talking, and I know that the people listening tonight are really grateful for both of you coming on. And I think that these conversations just remind us that, like you said, Shayna, behind every single policy change, behind every statistic, there's us, real people, and our futures are being impacted heavily. So it's exactly why we're calling for a payment pause. And with that, I am going to toss it over to my colleague Ryan, who is going to go over some of the changes that are happening in just a few days on July 1st.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Sabrina, Ashley, and thank you so much for everyone for being here. I know we all really appreciate you being here, and we're glad to share this space with you. I'm Ryan. I'm the Student Debt Crisis Center's Policy and Communications Associate, and I'm just going to go over the July 1st changes that are coming as part of the major overhaul of the student loan system, which is coming as part of the implementation of the One Big Beautiful Bill. So first, we're going to go over lending limits. So these lending limits will start on July 1st, 2026. And the new aggregate lifetime loan limit will be $257,500 for all borrowers, regardless of any amounts repaid or forgiven. But that does exclude the Parent Plus loans. And then existing borrowers enrolled full-time in a program by June 30th, 2026, who also took out a direct loan for that program, may be exempt from new borrowing caps for up to 3 years. And then you can take a look on the left side. We have a helpful table there. Based on the program type, there's different lending caps. So as you can see at the top of the table for undergraduate students, there are no lending, or there are no non-applicable lending caps. And then for the graduate program, you have a cap of $20,500 per year with a $100,000 total lifetime limit. For professional programs, it's a $50,000 per year lending limit with a $200,000 total lifetime limit. And then for Parent Plus loans, it's a $20,000 per year per dependent limit, and then a max of $65,000 per dependent. And then this is for loan holders with any loans issued or consolidated on or after July 1st, 2026. You will have two options. The first one is the new tiered standard plan, and then the repayment assistance plan, also known as RAP. So we're going to go over those a little bit more in detail on the next slides. So for the tiered standard plan, for student loan holders with loans issued or consolidated on or after July 1st, 2026. As I previously mentioned, this is one of your options. It has fixed monthly payments based on the loan balance, but the repayment assistance plan may be a more affordable option since it is an income-driven repayment plan, but there is no loan forgiveness, so you will pay the balance off in full. And then on the right, there's a table about your repayment term depending on how much money you borrowed in student loans. So from zero to $24,999, you have a repayment term of 10 years. From $25,000 to $50,000, you have a repayment term of 15 years. From $50,000 to $100,000, you have a repayment term of 20 years. And then for $100,000 plus, you'll have a repayment term of 25 years. And then I just wanted to stress again, this will be available starting July 1st. And this is the repayment assistance plan. So this repayment term is 30 years, which is 360 IDR credits. An IDR credit is just what you receive for your monthly payment. But if you make multiple payments in 1 month, you can't receive more credits. So that's 360 credits, which is 360 months. And the people who qualify are all borrowers with direct loans except Parent Plus loans. And then just a couple things to note. This has a minimum of $10 payments, so no more $0 minimum payments. But the repayment assistance plan waives any interest not covered by the monthly payment and reduces the principal by up to $50 if the payment does not. And it's based on 1 to 10% of aggregate gross income, which is less generous than SAVE and more expensive than other income-driven repayment plans for lower income folks. And then new payments made under the repayment assistance plan will not count towards loan forgiveness under income-based repayment for borrowers who enroll in repayment assistance plan and later switch back to income-based repayment. So yeah, a lot of information to take in, but definitely good information to be caught up on ahead of July 1st when this goes into implementation. So next we're going to move on to what current borrowers need to know right now. So I'll pass that to our president, Natalia Abrams.
Thank you, Ryan. And thank you all for bearing with us. So much information, a really great borrower panel with Sabrina, Ashley, Shayna, and Sarah. And we just want to prepare you. We're fighting. I'm seeing this in the chat. We're fighting for a payment pause as hard as we can, but we want to make sure folks are prepared until we win, right? Until we get that pause. So here's what's going on right now for student loan holders with loans that you do not take out a single loan before July 1st. There is that standard student loan plan. We all know so many people cannot afford to pay on the standard plan. So what do you do? What do you do if you're looking to switch out of SAVE? There are income-driven repayment plans. Income contingent repayment still exists until 2028. Income-based repayment is a legacy plan. As long as you don't take out a single loan after July 1st, you can enroll in income-based repayment. Pay as you earn is around until 2028. The SAVE plan, as we all know, is going away. And then there is the new repayment assistance plan. We strongly suggest using the student loan simulator, even if you don't plan to change out of your plan until that 90th day after the notice, if you're on SAVE, just to be armed with what plans are available to you or that you can apply for. And it's a case-by-case basis. We can't tell you what plan is right for you. That's where the loan simulator or the EdCap tool comes into play. Now, if none of those plans work, there are these older plans or the fixed plans, which is graduated repayment, or extended graduated repayment. Those do exactly what they say. So graduated repayment, your payments will gradually get higher over, I believe it's a 2-year period. Extended repayment will extend the term. So these are all potential options as you look to go off of the SAVE plan or have to make changes to your loans. Just remember that income-based repayment is this legacy plan that is still there for you, and kind of cross-compare that with the other plans out there. So here is another snapshot at the options. So pay would be 10% of your discretionary income. This is a calculation the department uses. That's a 20-year plan. For some borrower, I just spoke with a borrower. They don't like their payment on pay, but because they only have 7 months left, and that's less than that's definitely before 2028. They're going to go on the pay as you earn plan and pay as little as possible. Direct loans, not the parent plus loans issued before July 1st. There is no hardship requirement any longer starting July 1st for pay as you earn. That is something that has been removed. So please keep that in mind. Then there's also new IBR. I know it gets confusing. This is why we say use that student loan simulator. That's also 10% of your discretionary income. This is to all loans, direct loans, and FFELP loans issued before, consolidated or before after July 14, 2014 to July 1st. It's not going to be issued post that. Old IBR, now we start to see the percentage go up to 15% and also the increase of years. So that's 25 years. ICR is 20% of your discretionary income. So these plans just get more expensive, or 25 years. And then the new repayment plan. This is a completely change. This is not a discretionary income percentage any longer. This is based on adjusted gross income, and it goes from a 1 to 10% range. I know if you make like over $100,000, you'll be at that 10% range of adjusted gross income, and people are seeing payments well over $800 to $1,000 based on their income. It may be far too expensive for you, and it's a 30-year timeline. The only thing I'd say about RAP, as Ryan mentioned, is it does help with some of that interest. So you shouldn't see your balance balloon, but again, use that repayment calculator to see which options are best for you. So here's a snapshot of the student loan simulator. You definitely want to either say that you want the best student loan repayment strategy, or that you're struggling with your loan payments. It will ask you a series of questions. Then on the other side, we have the EdCap tool. Keep in mind that the EdCap tool will not tell you which plans you're applicable for. It will give you it's a calculator to show you how much your payments are. But the Department of Ed, especially if you're logged into studentaid.gov, will tell you what plans that you can apply to and what plans you do not qualify for. So how do you apply for an IDR plan? We're talking about this. An IDR is income-driven repayment. That's the umbrella term for things like IBR or pay as you earn. So to apply, you need your permanent or mailing address, your family size. If you do not opt into IRS integration, you'll need to manually upload income documentation. So this is either a W-2, pay stub, employer letter certifying gross income, bank account statement, dividend statement, that kind of thing. You must know which plan you want to enroll on. In the past, people had an option of lowest monthly payment that was removed from the income-driven repayment application. And if you checked that and applied a year plus ago, you will want to reapply. If you've been just in this limbo and forbearance, you would want to reapply if you have not heard back or seen any movement on your application form. Because processing can take anywhere from a few days to a few months. For some people, it's been years because of that backlog. We also worry that processing is going to get far worse after July 1st when everyone's rushing to change into a new plan, or not rushing because you can't afford any of these payments. And again, this is why we need a payment pause. But I digress. If you go onto an IDR plan, just keep in mind that it can take a while. Applications that opt into that IRS integration, we have been told and spoke directly with borrowers that are seeing their applications processed much more quickly compared to manually documenting income. Once you apply and it's accepted, you'll be placed into a processing, or once you apply, you'll be placed into a processing forbearance. At that point, you should start earning credits towards your income-driven repayment count, and then also towards public service loan forgiveness. If you're not on one, this is your right to be on one. You can call your loan servicer and demand to be placed on one. Again, as I mentioned, if you previously submitted an application a year plus ago or checked lowest monthly payment and you haven't heard back, we strongly suggest resubmitting an application. Okay, so we just want to share this IDR credit account hack or tool, and shout out to Debt Collective who first brought this to our attention. We think this is really important for people that are unsaved and want to know how close they are to their the end of their journey for income-driven repayment. And this matters for that borrower I brought up who, when we went through this credit count, he found out that he had only 7 months left to pay. And using this tool was the only way to find that out because the Department of Education took off the credit count tracker. So they've made it very hard to know. While his payment is more than he really can afford, the fact that it's only 7 months and then he'll have the rest forgiven, he's going to figure out how to do it for 7 months. He couldn't do it for 7 years, but he can definitely do it for 7 months. So you have to log into studentaid.gov. You cannot access this tool without being logged in. Then, and this will be sent to you in a recording, but the steps will be shared in the chat as well. Then you want to paste this URL into a new tab. Then your next step is to click on the small box at the top that says pretty print, because you're going to see a bunch of code, just all this like white on black, very confusing, but pretty print will make it slightly easier to read. If you don't see pretty print, that's not a problem. You can always email us at Student Debt Crisis Center. I'm sure Debt Collective folks too would be happy to take emails so we can help you disseminate the information. Unfortunately, this doesn't work for everyone, although most of the time that I've tried it with borrowers, it has worked. Okay, so here's that code that I'm talking about. So what you see, well, on my left, the more horizontal looking box, you see just a bunch of code. But then when you click pretty print, it starts to look a little more clear. So if you can see in this yellow box area, you'll see you're going to look for the type followed by the plan name. So you can see ICR, which is income contingent repayment, or the next paragraph, which is income-based repayment. You want to look for the qualifying count. So this person has 54 qualifying payments. And then look for the forgiveness required payments and forgiveness remaining payments. So you can see there, this ICR program, they would need 300 qualifying required payments. And because they have 54 qualifying payments, that means they have 246 left. So it's that last line in each paragraph, the forgiveness remaining payments. If you see 10 or 2 or something quite low, then you may want to consider enrolling in that plan that has the lowest. Very close to the end of your journey for income contingent repayment. So we just want folks, hopefully you can hear me. I know my internet got a little unstable. So hopefully you can use this tool to know how close you are to the end of your journey. And that will help guide you into what plan is best for you. Now, if you run into trouble, we're hearing already, and it's not even July 1st, that Mohia has 4-hour wait times, and it's only going to get worse from here. If you're having trouble with your loan servicer, if they're giving you misinformation, if they're charging you incorrect amounts, you can file a complaint. There is a casework tool that our friends over at Protect Borrowers has created to connect with the caseworkers with your federal representative. There's also your state attorney general's office. If you're lucky enough to have a state ombudsman, I know we have it here in California, Connecticut, DC, Washington State. Many states have it. Right now, the ombuds folks are some of the best resources to complain about your student loan. There is your loan servicer. the chat and messaging functions, phone and email. But as I said, we know it's hard to get in touch with your servicer. And there is the Department of Education's contact center. I don't have a ton of faith, but it's always great to document and put your complaints out there if you are able to and have the time. So what can you do right now? While we continue to, while you're going to sign a payment pause petition, you're going to share it with as many people as you know. We're going to keep that energy up. We know that people are very afraid of what's about to happen. So know who your student loan servicer is and ensure you have access to your account on their website. Big thing, make sure your contact information is up to date. Once you get that formal notice, it's most likely going to come via email. So you want to make sure your email is up to date. And that date that they send it to you will start your 90-day clock. So it's really important to have that information up to date. Save any and all communication and documentation you've received from your loan servicer, the Department of Education, print, download, screenshot. Make sure anything that says your income-driven repayment or public service loan forgiveness credits. If you do that trick that we just showed you, take a screenshot of it so you have documentation if there's anything hinky that goes on in the future. And with that, I'm going to throw it back to Sabrina Ashley to just remind folks on how to take action.
Thank you so much, Natalia. Thank you, everyone in the chat. I am seeing people heated, riled up, ready to take action, I hope. So let's get into it. We mentioned it previously, but we, of course, are on this call because we are demanding a student loan payment pause. So here is just one petition that you can sign. Join the 100,000 signers already. If you have not taken action, please take action tonight. We're dropping it into the chat. This is Student Debt Crisis Center's petition. Highly encourage everyone to sign this. And we also have another petition for you all to sign. And that is the Debt Collective petition. Again, highly encourage you all to take action tonight. We're going to drop this in the chat again one more time. If you haven't signed this, please sign this now. Every single signature and name counts. If you have friends who would like to sign it, share it with them. You'll get these links in the follow-up email that we will send to you all along with the recording. Just another reminder about that. But please take action to demand a student loan payment pause. This would be a huge relief. I know many of you probably feel that. And then we do have a final action that you all can take to make your voice heard even more. We have this form here. We can drop this also in the chat. It's a simple Google form. If you'd like to get more involved, like join a working group, if you'd like to share your story, if you'd like to participate in future events, help us out virtually or in person, or if you'd like to share resources. I've seen so many people sharing resources in the chat, and I love that. If you'd like to share resources with your family, friends, neighbors, you can sign up. Let's drop that in the chat here. Can grab that link for you all. And this is just going to allow us to get in contact with you and let you all know how you can help and get involved more. Okay, and there's that link in the chat. Okay, finally, we encourage you to stay involved. We have both of our organizations' information here. You can find us at studentdebtcrisis.org or debtcollective.org. You can follow us on social media at debtcrisis.org or at Strike Debt. You can also contact us. You can send us an email at info@studentdebtcrisis.org, or if you're on our website, you can also head to the contact us little thing in the bottom corner there and send us an email. And you can also get in touch with Debt Collective at debtcollective.org/contact-us. Again, we are going to send all of these links and contact information in the follow-up email that you all will receive. All right. I want to thank everyone for joining us. We have a few minutes left, so we asked folks to submit some questions when they were signing up. And I'd love to get to a few of those. Let me pull those up here. And I believe we have Julia, Natalia on. Let's see, to answer some questions.
Hey everyone, thank you so much for the questions in the chat. It's been a very engaging evening. Can I start with something,
For
Sabrina?
sure. Yeah, go for it.
Okay, I was just trying to pull out themes from what people were asking. And I think one question that's super hard to answer is what do I do if I just can't afford this? Or what do I do if I can't pay? So I thought I could provide like 2 minutes on that. Is that okay?
Yeah, that
Okay.
is actually the first question I was going to ask.
Okay, same page. Okay, so I completely understand that a lot of people are in that boat. I think we can tell from this call. And by the way, there are hundreds and hundreds of people on this call um, that people cannot afford this. We know that. And I want to say a couple of things. One thing is obviously our collective action and communicating this to your representatives is extremely important. I know a lot of people don't feel confident doing that or don't even want to do it, but I think it's extremely important. Then they need to hear from you. And anything you've said to us and your questions is an amazing email to send to them. Like literally, you don't have to be any different. Just send them like, I don't understand what's going on. I can't afford it. I'm freaking out. Help. That's all you have to send them. That's number one. Number two, I just want to make sure that you all know that cancellation options still do exist. So I saw people in the chat saying, like, is PSLF still happening? The answer is yes. It is delayed. The whole thing is annoying for sure. But yes, it is still happening. It is still going through. And if you qualify for PSLF, you should absolutely still be going for it. That's number one. Number two, I saw people talking about being unemployed and not knowing what to do. And I always try to say on these calls, like a public service announcement, that if you are unemployed, it doesn't matter your situation. You can call and get into an income-driven repayment plan with a $0 payment. If your income is $0 because you're unemployed, you can get a $0 payment. And that is still true with the options that we have. Hopefully, it will get even easier with the case and with the changes we're asking for. But anytime you get a new income-driven repayment monthly payment, that lasts for an entire year. So if you're unemployed, you can call and tell them that. You could switch into an income-driven or income-based repayment plan, get a $0 payment, and that will last for an entire year, even if you subsequently get a job or have income. So that I wanted to mention. I saw people talking about being sick. There is actually a cancellation program called Total and Permanent Disability Discharge, which is confusing because it is actually neither total nor permanent, the disability that one has to have to qualify for that program. Total means you can't work, and permanent means, you can't, and permanent means 60 months, I believe, 3 to 5 years. So I would encourage you to look into that if you or someone you know or love is sick or taking a break from work due to a health issue, including mental health. And we have a group about that at the Debt Collective. I'm sure SDCC can point you in the right direction as well. And then just wanted to mention if you went to a school that scammed you, some famous schools in that category are like ITT Tech or Corinthian colleges. If you went to a school that did fraud or scams, and we can help people with a list if you're curious, there is a type of cancellation called borrower defense. So I think it's important that people know about those options. If none of that applies to you and you still can't pay, default, we will reschedule this whole call is making me think we should reschedule our monthly default calls where we explain the default process to people. We can start doing those with SDCC. And default does take 9 months to occur. I saw Sabrina talk about that in the chat. And then currently the forced collections that can occur, such as wage garnishment and the seizure of tax refunds are paused. We do think that pause will end at some point, but it is paused for now. So that is one option. And then secondly, bankruptcy is an option that is getting easier for people and is working. So you probably need a lawyer or legal aid support in that case, but there is free legal aid support for all people under certain incomes. So if you're interested in that option, we can talk more about it or anything. But I just wanted to say there are options for people who can't pay, that I wanted to go through. Thank you, Sabrina.
Awesome. I think all that information is so important, and a lot of people forget it or just have no idea about those options. Um, and it's all so confusing and flustering. I feel like even some advocates forget that some of those options are available. So thank you so much, Julia, for sharing those. Um, okay, so I have a few questions about Save the July 1 deadline. And I want to address one to kind of set that foundation. How someone asked, how do I compare RAP, IBR pay, and other options? And I want to remind folks about the loan simulator and then also the EdCap tool. And the loan simulator is going to be good for eligibility purposes. If you log in and use it, it can show you what plans you're eligible for. The EdCap tool is very helpful for estimating your payments. Now, none of this is like 100% guaranteed until you get that bill in the mail from your servicer. That's going to obviously be your final payment. But the EdCap tool has calculators, and it's especially helpful for RAP and the new tiered standard. They have those calculators uploaded right now, and the loan simulator does not, which is another reason why we need a payment pause. So I just wanted to point that out. And then, Natalia, I'll pass this to you. A lot of people are asking, do I need to switch plans before July 1st? And what happens if they don't choose a new plan?
Yeah, so we've all seen those notices from the Department of Ed, and they've now sent out a third notice with that scary red triangle. They're truly awful, you all. Like, I mean, they're trying to intimidate you to get off of these plans now, even though they're not the formal notice. No one has received a formal notice yet. That will start on July 1st. And keyword there is start. We don't know how long it's going to take to roll out all of these notices. We're hearing some, it could be a month, 2 months, we all know servicers don't have their act together. So it's really important to pay attention to when you get that notice. Then you have 90 days after you receive the formal notice from your loan servicer. Not these bogus notices you're getting from the Department of Education to scare you, but something from Mohia or Ed Financial or Aidvantage. That's the kind of company you're looking for to get an email from. And then, no, you do not have to take immediate action. You have 90 days. We understand a lot of people are going to wait till that 11th hour on the 90th day because they can't afford to change into a plan any sooner or at all. If you don't go into a repayment plan, like an income-driven repayment plan that we've all talked about, like RAP or income-driven repayment or pay as you earn, then they're going to either place you on the standard, which is a 10-year plan, or the new standard. And they haven't clarified to us, even though we keep asking, who will be placed on what. And the new tiered standard is 25 years. This is all another reason we need a payment pause. The guidance right now is so murky and unclear, and frankly, just grossly unfair to you all as borrowers. But we don't want folks to like all of a sudden have this huge loan payment when, especially if you are low income or unemployed, you can be on an income driven repayment plan with a $0 payment. You can't get that with RAP. The minimum payment is $10. But with income driven repayment, pay as you earn, income contingent repayment, if you are making zero, you pay zero. Anyone that is unemployed right now or super low income should look at those income driven repayment plans just to secure that $0 payment. So you don't wind up having $1,000 payment based off of your loan balance. But you have to, long story short, you have that full 90-day period after you receive the notice. So if you don't receive the notice till August 15th, it's 90 days after that.
Thank you, Natalia, for clarifying that. I know we are approaching the end, so I have a couple of rapid fire questions. As we were listening to Natalia, I hope you all picked up on this, but income-driven repayment plans are 100% still available to enroll in. Obviously, there are big changes coming. We've been talking about them all night, July 1st. So those options will be different for different borrowers depending on when you're taking your loans out, but IDR plans are still available. Someone asked also, how do I know which repayment plan I'm enrolled in? You can head to studentaid.gov and log in. It will tell you what repayment plan you're enrolled in. If you don't have access to that, you can call your servicer. I know those wait times are a little scary, but that is definitely an option. And I think the last question we will probably take tonight is which repayment plans qualify for PSLF, Public Service Loan Forgiveness? We didn't cover public service loan forgiveness that much in this presentation. We definitely have resources about that on both of our websites. But all income-driven repayment plans are going to be eligible for PSLF. You can also be in the 10-year standard plan. And then the RAP plan, repayment assistance plan, is going to be eligible for public service loan forgiveness. I want to just thank everyone on this call, our whole audience. Thank you. There were hundreds of you on tonight, which is incredible. I hope you all enjoyed hearing from people. I hope you all found community in the chat, and I hope you all learned something and are going to take action to pause payments. I also want to give a special thank you to Austin Hinkle and Julia Barnard for joining us and giving us so much valuable and wise words of how we can handle this.
And can we have one final word? I just wanted to say to all the people in the chat saying, is there any hope? Because I saw a lot of that. That my genuine opinion as someone who has been inside of government, as someone who, like Natalia and others here, has been working on this issue for over a decade is yes. I think there is a broad understanding that this situation is untenable. The system is fundamentally broken, and we got to do something about it. So I just wanted to say the Havens case gives me hope. That's just 4 regular people who brought a case that could actually pause payments for everybody and save if it's successful. I always try to say I think that all student debtors should be voting on this issue. You should really research the candidates you're thinking about voting for and see what they think about student debt, see what they're proposing, ask them what they're proposing. And finally, I hope that people have found some sense of solidarity in the chat. I have felt it in the chat. It's amazing to see so many similar stories, and it moves me genuinely. And I hope that you feel that as well. So I hope you'll join us again at SDCC and at Debt Collective to continue building on all of that and to organize with us, because I do think this will take all of us.
Yes, Sabrina, and Julia, I just want to echo what Julia said, that the over 100,000 folks that have signed a petition to pause payments has given me so much hope and really directed us at Student Debt Crisis Center. We keep saying we are supporter led, and you have all told us what you want us to work on, and we're going to work as hard as we can on that. I'm grateful for your borrower panel, Sabrina, Ashley, and for Shayna and Sarah for being on this call and being willing to share their stories, and that, having everyone in the chat support them and share your stories in the chat. We are all going to keep doing this together. Please sign that form and let us know how you want to get more involved so we can just keep this energy going through the summer. And, hopefully not even hopefully, we are going to secure a payment pause. It might take a little bit of time, but we're just going to keep building this energy. And grateful to you, Sabrina Ashley, for leading us in a really wonderful hour and a half.
So thank you. Yes, I'm very grateful for the Debt Collective team. Thank you, Julia and Thomas, for being in the chat and answering questions. I know there have been a lot tonight. Thank you, Ryan and Sabrina, for also answering questions. And then, yes, incredible thank you to Sarah and Shayna for joining us tonight and for very bravely and candidly sharing your story. As a reminder, you all will get a recording of this, all of the links to every single resource and action that we shared tonight. Thank you all, and I hope you all have a great night.